are. This parable today, of course, we've all heard it. And there's another version of it in the Gospel of Luke, but they, according to most of the fathers, are not uttered at the same time. This one is after Palm Sunday, the other one before. And the other one, the emphasis is a little bit more on the distractions or the excuses that people make for not entering the kingdom of heaven. Ultimately, I have land, I have a wife, I have 5 yoke of oxen that I must go and check on. Well, that didn't really cut it because they put something ahead of the king, which is God. And today, of course, you have groups of people that also have excuses, not quite as detailed, but they use them instead of coming to meet Christ as they should. And then there's this one man who comes in there, is invited, but he doesn't have the wedding garment. Now, if you've ever really looking into that or read the Old Testament much, you'll see in Isaiah and other places that wedding garment was important to these kind of feasts, and it's used as an image also of having the virtues of being repentant, of being followers of Christ, of God. And also in these times, just on a practical level, wedding garments were given out to people coming to the special feasts because they wanted to have a proper appearance at those events, which is we should maintain proper appearances. But this man was not ready to enter into here. He did not wear his garment, and he was cast out. And while it sounds harsh in the context of what's going on, the man had not prepared himself even to meet the Lord, to be at that banquet. He was not worthy of being there. It is much like when we are given our baptismal robe at baptism. We are told to preserve this. This is what we need to do, is to preserve this to the second coming. And yes, we all fall, and yes, we all stain that garment, but that is why the Lord gave us that wonderful gift of tears and confession and repentance, that we might wash that garment clean again and be ready for the kingdom of heaven, at least making that effort to be ready. None of us succeed, I don't think. Some come closer than others. But the Lord wants to know that we want to be there. We want to have that garment proper for the kingdom of heaven. At the end of the passage, it says, many are called, but few are chosen. And this is the part that St. Gregory Palamas emphasizes in his homily on it. He goes into rather great detail about it, but he says that we have to be sure to recognize that we are, to make sure we are elect, that we are chosen, do everything in our life we can to be of Christ, to follow the gospel commandments. Now, some people make some kind of argument falsely as he talks about that he just says many are called, not all. Well, in this context of the parable, yes, he was talking to a group of people, the Jews. But later on he says to go preach the gospel to all nations, which has been done. It has been preached. And so therefore, we cannot say that all are not called. All the fathers say this, by the way. This is not an isolated father. Even if it were Gregory Palamas' words carry great, great weight in the Orthodox Church. So what are we doing to make our life sure? We have been called. There's no one in this room that has showed up here today that has not been called. Every one of us has been called to the kingdom of heaven, to the banquet. Will we be chosen is the trick. In the Gospels, the Lord tells us to take that middle way, that difficult way. Because wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Many are those who find that. But narrow is the gate and difficult is the way that leads to life. And he tells us to follow that path, the narrow and difficult way. He tells us to bear his yoke, which is easy, and the burden is light. But sometimes it doesn't seem that way to us. He tells us to not love anything more than him, not wife or children or brothers or sisters, father or mother, lands, anything more than him. And on and on and on. It could probably go fill up quite a while with the statements that the Lord makes of how careful we have to be to enter the kingdom of heaven. Christ has to be all in all for us, everything for us, to fill up our lives. And we can't make excuses and say, I can't do this. No, you can't. But God can. With God, all things are possible. And if we would just get ourselves out of the way and submit to him, we would have great joy. Oh, but Father, this sounds so difficult. This sounds so hard. You have to be thinking about God all the time. I can't be doing these things I like to do anymore, and these things. I have to change what I watch and listen to, and change the way I speak, and the things I eat, and the things I talk about. I can't do those things anymore. That's too hard. Look at the saints. Look at the saints I've described to you for 17 years in this parish now. More than that now. Think of the saints I'm talking about. St. Paisios of the Athonite. Is he a dour man? I would adore it 1 minute to sit around that man and just watch him. Was Porphyrios of Casocalabia a dour man? He certainly was not. Was John Scheinheim in San Francisco that way, guitars of Egina? None of them were. Were they deeply repentant people? And did they weep for their sins? Yes, they did. But they loved everyone, and they were filled with Christ, and people knew it. I've told many people before that a couple of times I had the blessing to sit with Elder Ephraim, that he's very strict. Make no means about it. He is a very, very strict Orthodox man, the strictest of Athonite monasticism. But yet, I found myself wanting to do every single thing he said with great joy, because he was like a child, filled with Christ, light coming out of him. And I knew that everything he was saying was because he wanted my salvation as well. That's the only reason. That's the reason the Lord speaks the way he does. And it's sometimes very difficult, because he wants us all to come to the knowledge of the truth and to be with him in paradise. Every one of us. So we make things more difficult than they are. Now, how many of us can honestly say, with the despair we feel, or the anxiety, or the temptations, whatever addictions we have, can we say that we're happy with those? I haven't met that person yet if they were honest with themselves. Can we say that when I'm feeling down, I turn on the TV for 5 hours, or surf the internet for 10, or drink, or eat too much, or that I'm really happy? No, you can't. Not if you're honest, because you're simply covering up pain. But if you fill yourself up with Christ, and open your hearts up to the place of Christ, and let him be in your hearts, and let him be the master of your life, and let him be enthroned, joy will come. That doesn't mean there won't be temptations. There is a cross to bear, as St. Paul is telling us. We must be lifted up as Christ is lifted up, and he is the one that fills up our crosses with power and strength. We must look to that bronze serpent in the wilderness, which got rid of the poison of the snakes. And look to the cross as our bronze serpent, which gets rid of the poison of sin, which is not living in that stream of grace that God lives in. That is what the law is. It's the way God lives. The law of the gospel is his life. That's why he calls it to us, not so we can fulfill these prescriptions, but we can live and have life more abundantly. St. Paul said, and I can't resist going here either, so much for time. When he talks about, I died to the world, and the world has died to me, and I have died to the world, what is he talking about? Those of you who have read St. Dorotheus of Gaza and his spiritual counsels, or have read Ignatius Brianchaninov and the Arena, will know what he's talking about. They go into great detail about that. The world being dead to us is simply all these things in the world have no meaning for us anymore, because Christ is all in all. Everything that is bad in the world, the distractions, the temptations, really lose any great interest for us, because what do they mean? And those who have seen Christ, those who have had that experience in their life, realize that all of a sudden things that were important really don't mean that much anymore. Only the one thing needful means anything. And those things die to us. And when we die to the world, the temptations and passions which we have within our own hearts are put to death by a life of self-denial and a life of turning to Christ. That's following the cross. That is the message of following the cross. And that is what it takes to keep that wedding garment proper, to enter into the marriage feast. Because we have been called to that feast, each and every one of us. We've all been given a garment, or else we will be given a garment, some in the room. And with that garment, we must do everything we can to keep it clean, to keep it pure, to keep it radiant with the light of transfiguration, with the light of Christ. That when the judgment comes, and it will, and our judgment does come every day, actually, in our own hearts, But when the final judgment comes, the Lord will look at us and he will recognize us because what? We look like him. He sees Christ in us. He sees himself reflecting off of us and the way of our life and the garment that we bear. May we bear our cross into the kingdom of heaven. Amen.
Amen.